I hate this camera today. Does not want to cooperate with me. Okay, that part's done. I know I have more, I just don't know where it is. Oh well, we'll make do with what we have today.
Lawrence is arrested a couple of times again for theft and robbery. He was sentenced to 6 months to 15 years imprisonment, but was released after serving just 3 years. I don't know if you've caught on, but Lawrence got a pretty lengthy record already. And then in 1974, look, I'm just laughing at how ridiculous this is. In 1974, Lawrence was arrested for assault with attempt to commit murder. You see, what happened? He stabbed a young supermarket employee who had accused him of stealing. The supermarket employee had seen Lawrence stealing a steak, and he followed Lawrence outside into the parking lot, where he calmly asked Lawrence whether he had forgotten to pay for that steak he was holding. Lawrence stabbed them in the chest. Supposedly, he barely missed his heart, but he stabs him in the chest, and then he attempts to flee, and then he was quickly restrained by 2 other supermarket employees. Now, the employee, luckily, thank God, had survived the stabbing. Lawrence was convicted of the lesser charge of assault with a deadly weapon, and he was sent to California's men's colony in San Luis Obispo. I'm getting tongue-tied today. So, in November of 1969...
I can relate, Bailey. I have that problem sometimes, too.
Why can't I be a normal person? Mr. Norris was arrested for his first known sexual offense. He was charged with both rape and assault with attempt to commit rape. February of 1970, Norris attempted to deceive a lone woman into allowing him to enter her home. And when the woman refused, he attempted to break into her house. And the woman called the police, who then arrested Mr. Norris. And then in May of 1970, Norris, on bail for his latest offense, he then went on to attack a lady student he had been stalking on the grounds of the San Diego State University campus. Norris repeatedly struck her on the back of her head with a rock until she slumped to her knees before he repeatedly beat her head against the sidewalk. Shortly thereafter, Norris was charged with assault with a deadly weapon. He committed to a total of 5 years imprisonment. He was classified as a mentally disordered sex offender. And then, I'm laughing because of how ridiculous this is, okay? Because in 1975, he was released with 5 years probation, and he was declared by doctors as an individual who was of, quote, no further danger to others, end quote. And here's the kicker. The kicker. Just 3 months after his release, Norris approached a 27-year-old woman walking home from a restaurant in Redondo Beach, and he offered her a ride on his motorcycle. When she declined, Norris parked his motorcycle and grabbed the woman's scarf, twisted it around her neck, dragged her into a nearby bush, where he then proceeded to rape her. Now, the rape was reported, but they were unable to find Norris. They couldn't find him. He was long gone by the time she reported it. However, a month later, the victim was out. She was like living her life, and she spots Norris's motorcycle. And she's like, oh shit, that's his motorcycle. She writes down his license plate number, and she immediately gave it to the police. Norris was arrested for the rape, and then 1 year later, he was tried and convicted for this offense. He was then sent to the California men's colony in San Luis Obispo. And while
I feel like I'm
incarcerated at the
speaking a lot better than I
California
was
men's colony, Norris
last
met and
week.
befriended Lawrence. Where two becomes one. Side note, because this pisses me off. Now, you think this would be the end of the story, right? Because so much shit has already happened between these two, right? You think this would be it. You think that would be the end of this story. Nay, I say. Nope, of course not. Stupid ass people letting them out. Sorry, I got a cookie to make myself feel better. Put it down. Lawrence and Norris, his name is Rory, but I can't say it, okay? Lawrence and Norris, they're in the same prison together. So they become, familiar with one another. Lawrence would say, they were acquaintances at first. They knew of each other. They saw each other. Lawrence would say that they only began talking in friendly terms when Norris taught Lawrence how to make jewelry while in prison. You get like arts and crafts time. Then Norris would say that they became really close when Lawrence saved him from being attacked by fellow inmates on at least 2 occasions. So after that, they became pretty close. And what do close friends do? They sit around and gossip with one another, and they tell each other secrets. And that's what they did. When they became friends, they started to discover that they had common interests. Norris also confided in Lawrence that the thing that really turned him on, he's like, let me tell you, girl, the thing that really turns me on, he loved seeing the face of frightened young women. And then he added, this was the primary reason why he had such a lengthy sexual assault record. Which is weird because at this point when he was arrested, he didn't have a lengthy sexual assault record. So there's reason to believe that he's hiding a lot of shit he did. That was just like a side note, but like, okay. So then Lawrence follows that and tells Norris that if he ever raped a woman, he would kill her. So, you know, he would not leave a witness to the crime. And like Norris was like, oh my god, wow, that's so cool. Wow, you're so cool. Now, when the two were alone, it's said that the pair often discussed plans to assault and murder teenage girls once they were freed. You see, they shared this fantasy, which then evolved into an elaborate plan to murder one girl of each teenage year. So from 13 all the way to 19. They wanted to find a girl of every age between then and murder them. Set better goals. The pair vowed to become
Set better goals.
once they were released. Lawrence was released in October of 1978. He returned to Los Angeles where he found work as a mechanist. Sorry, I'm having a hard time talking. Now, he would earn about $1,000 a week, which is like a great amount of money, especially at this time. But he became
Why is it that when I start these videos, I always end up having...
neighborhood and his place of work. And
Sorry, that was
he earned a
graphic, but...
reputation as a generous and helpful individual who occasionally donated money to local charities.
Always.
Reading about him, he seemed to do a lot of like public service and donating on his spare time. So it's strange, but okay. I don't know. I just thought that was kind of weird. Anyways, and then 3 months after Lawrence was released, in January of 1979, Norris was released from prison and he moved into his mother's home in Redondo Beach. He soon found employment as an electrician in Compton. Shortly after his release, Norris received a letter from Lawrence asking if he wanted to meet. And then in late February, the pair met at a hotel and they rekindled their plan to kidnap and rape girls. It shouldn't have even been released in the first place, but that's just personal opinion, I guess. So in order for the pair to successfully kidnap girls, Lawrence decided they would need a van as opposed to like a normal car. So the two put their money together and they purchased a silver 1977 cargo. Purchased a silver 1977 GMC cargo van. The vehicle was windowless on the sides and had a large passenger side sliding door. And according to Lawrence, when viewing this sliding door, he realized that he or Norris could, quote, pull up to a teenage girl real close and not have to open the doors all the way. Lawrence and Norris would nickname this van, quote, Murder Mac. Lawrence and Norris, they constructed like a bed in the back of the van. Beneath the bed, they placed tools, like a toolbox. They also had clothes in there, and then they got like an ice cooler thing, and they filled it with beer and soft drinks. They would drive up and down Pacific Coast Highway. They would drive to the beach, and at this point, they just kind of like were testing it out, flirting with girls, they said, having a good time.
So, not
long after, they decided that they needed to give this van a go. They needed to try it. They needed to see, can they get a victim? Sadly, they do. I don't know the exact date when they picked her up, but it was listed at like almost 8 o'clock at night. Norris had spotted a 16-year-old girl. She was just walking alone on the road. This girl's name was Lucinda, and she was walking because she had just left like a church meeting in Redondo Beach. She was walking down side street, walking home. Lawrence remembers Norris saying, quote, there's a cute little blonde. So they kind of pull up next to Lucinda and they ask her, hey, like, do you want a ride? We see that you're walking, it's getting late, we can give you a ride. And Lucinda declines. She's like, hell no. So then they offer her weed and beer because they had that in their car. And she says no. So this kind of pisses them off. They're like, this isn't working. They pull up further down the road and they park alongside a driveway. And they're waiting because they see Lucinda's like walking in that direction. Norris then exits the van and he opens the side sliding door and he pretends to like work in the van. He's like sticking out and pretending to kind of shuffle through things. But really they were just waiting for Lucinda to come walking up. As soon as Lucinda walks in their direction,
I had hair in my face and I couldn't grab it.
Says like, We don't know what he says to her. He just says a few words to her, but then he drags her into the van and then slams the door shut, and he turns the radio up to like full volume to muffle any sounds. So Norris is in the back and he is bounding Lucinda's arms and legs and then gags her with duct tape.
Wait a second, my wife is
drove
texting me.
to a road in the San Gabriel Mountains. Now, it said when Lucinda was first, like, snatched, she was screaming, as any of us would. She was screaming, but then she quickly regained composure. Lawrence wrote that Lucinda displayed a magnificent state of self-control and composed acceptance of the conditions of which she had no control. She shed no tears, offered no resistance, and expressed no great concern for her safety. I guess she knew what was coming. That was a quote. End quote. So once they get to this road, Norris first was the one to rape Lucinda after instructing Lawrence to go take a walk and return in 1 hour. Once Lawrence returned to the van, he then asked Norris to leave while he raped Lucinda. So they just took turns. Now, it's hard to know what happened exactly because Norris and Lawrence, they have given different accounts as to who actually like killed her, but it's said that they argued over whether they should kill her or if they should release her. I guess Norris is the one who tried to strangle Lucinda first. This is what Norris says. There was like a certain look in her eyes that made him physically sick. So he is trying to kill her. She's making this face that like really bothered him. So he said he ran to the front of the van and he threw up. So then Lawrence is like, well, get out of my way, I'll go do it. So he goes to Lucinda and he strangles her. She collapses to the ground. He then twists a wired coat hanger around her neck with pliers. And then he wrapped Lucinda's body in a plastic shower curtain. And then they both threw her body over a steep canyon that Lawrence had selected. So Norris would say that Lawrence assured him that the animals would eat her up, so there wouldn't be any evidence left. So then on July 8th, 1979, 2 weeks after the murder of Lucinda, Lawrence and Norris, they encountered an 18-year-old Andrea Joy Hall. She was hitchhiking along the Pacific Coast Highway. Now, they see her, but they were kind of like behind another car. So they have full plans to pull over and pick her up. But the car in front of them pulls over, and they offered Andrea a ride, and she accepted. So she gets in this car that's in front of them, and they drive off. So this pisses Lawrence and Norris off. So they decide to just follow the vehicle from a distance until Andrea had exited the vehicle in Redondo Beach. They pull over when Andrea had gotten out of the car and they offer her a soda or a beer. And she said, okay. She opens up the back of the van, and that's when Norris pounced on her. It said that Andrea really tried to fight back. She tried her best, but Norris was able to twist her arm behind her back, which then caused her to scream in pain.
That was fun.
Norris then gagged her with adhesive tape and then bound her wrist and her ankles. Lawrence and Norris drove.
Okay, so I'm not going to put the lipstick on right now because I've got a couple of other things I want to do before I film my TikToks and stuff.
Sadly,
but it is your basic black lipstick again today. The same one I had on yesterday.
Lawrence, and then
Day before
Norris
yesterday. I didn't film
raped her once. Lawrence then forced Andrea to walk uphill naked alongside the road and then to perform oral sex on him before ordering Andrea to pose for several Polaroid pictures. And Norris decided to walk to a local gas station or something and to go
Sometimes that happens.
And when he returned, Lawrence
I try to
was already alone.
make sure I get it all before
he had 2 more Polaroid pictures that he
I
had
move
taken.
on to
Norris
other
would say
makeup
that it was just pictures of her face being described as sheer terror, but Norris didn't know where Lawrence had put her body or like what happened exactly. Lawrence had informed Norris that he had told Andrea he was going to kill her and challenged her to give him as many reasons as she could to come up with as to why she should be allowed to live before
Okay, so in just a little bit here, I will add lipstick and film some TikToks for my true crime followers on YouTube. Please be sure to check out my transitions on TikTok at True Crime and Makeup, True_crime_and_makeup. Same handle is for our Instagram page. Hope to see you over there and over here on TikTok. You're welcome to follow those as well. And I will see you all tomorrow for our True Crime and Makeup Friday. Bye. Make good choices.